Okay, we're starting. We're on Sadik Zayin on the days. We're up to the Mishnah at the bottom. Just a brief introductory comments. The Korban Pesach we know has to be a male. It can't be more than a year old. It has to be from a goat. It has to be or a sheep. A Korban Shlomim can be either male or female. Right? Says the Mishnah, Mafish nekeva lepischoi. Someone is mafish, he separates an akeva from his Pesach. In other words, right away he's out of the ballpark. As soon as he separates this animal, it's out of the ballpark because A, it's the wrong gender. Oy zacha, it's the right gender. However, ben shtei shanim, it's overaged. It's got to be a year or less. It's in the first year of its life, and this is older than that. So this also, from the time of your separation, it's out of the ballpark. That's called dichui meikara. It's nitcha meikara from its initial being. It never was in the ballpark and out of the ballpark. It always was out of the ballpark. Yiroa actually story of halacha is you graze it until it gets a mum. The yimacha, you sell it. The yiplu damav, I would take out the word nedava. Rashi takes it out. The yiplu damav l'shlamim, and you go ahead and buy a shlamim. Usually, yiplu nedava means you throw it into the shofris in the Beis Hamikdash that says nedava, and they would use that when the mizbeach is at a slow pace. They'd use that funds to buy karbanos to keep the mizbeach in action. However, over here, there is no such animal, excuse the pun, of a pushka called shlamim in the Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, it's fair to say that. So therefore, Rashi takes out the word nedava and simply has the word, you use the money to buy a shlamim. Because again, this was not royal Pesach, was out of the ballpark. A second din in the Mishnah. Hamafish pischoi umeis, you separate your Pesach and the person who separated dies. This is Pesach shemesa ba'aleha. Lo yavienu b'noi achrav l'shem Pesach. The son should not bring the l'shem Pesach, el l'shem shlamim. The Gemara will get into, is the son registered on this Pesach or not, and exactly at which point in time did the person die. Okay, that din we'll get into. Let's look back at the first din. The first din was a female or an overaged male is not in the ballpark. It can't be used as a Pesach. You go ahead and you graze it, and it should become a shlamim. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna Brei B'Yeshua Shmami Enough. From that first in the Mishnah class, we can infer three dinim, which are in fact machlokes in various mesechtas and shas, primarily mesechta Yuma. Meikara dicha shmamina balichaim nidachin. Shmamina, a live animal, can be pushed out. Guys, the classic case is we're going to see the two goats that are brought simultaneously, one Hashem and one Zazel. They have to be in the world at the same time. Let's say you separate two, and one drops dead. If you hold Balin Chaim Nidachin, then the first one is out also, and you'd have to graze it, and you'd have to bring two more. If you hold Balin Chaim Ein Nidachin, you would just bring a goyrel, two, and then pick one and use the original. So over here, we see Balin Chaim Nidachin, because in fact, it's still alive, and it's out of the ballpark, because you can't bring it as a Korban Pesach. And secondly, Shmamina Dichim Meikore Habetichud. Shmamina, we hear from that, something that's out of the ballpark right away. You know, it never was in the ballpark. There's a day in the Gemara that you need nearer to be in the ballpark, then nidcha out of the ballpark, and then back in. So this is dichim eikara. From its initial period of kedusha, it was out. Ushmamino yesh dichui bedamim. There's dichui bedamim. Now the machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. This is fascinating. Rashi learns that anything that if you don't go ahead and it's not toifus kedushas aguf right away, it's kedushas damim. So therefore, since the umagdashus animal, you can't bring it as a Pesach because it's a female or an overaged male. Right away, it doesn't have kedushas aguf; it has kedushas damim. Anyway, so Tosfos has a problem that Tosfos says that's dichri meikara. That's dichri meikara. So Tosfos has an elaborate pshat where you're shechting it, and the blood is dripping in the water, and it's going ahead. And even though at one point in time there'll be more blood than water, we say yesh dichri b'damim. Tosfos doesn't learn damim means value. Tosfos learns b'damim is speaking about blood. Fascinating how the term can be damim usually means value. In this case, Tosfos says no, it means blood. Fascinating machlokes. The next din in the Mishnah was Yemafish Pesach. Someone dies, and he said that what the son should not bring it as a Pesach; he should only bring it as a shlamim. Okay, says the Gemara. Tanrabanan. Hamafish es pischoi. Someone's mafish is Korban Pesach. Umeis, and consequently he dies. In beno mimuna imo. So now the Bryce is elaborating much more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah mentioned nothing whatsoever about when the son was registered. It just said a carte blanche statement. You can't bring it as a Pesach. You bring it as a Shlomim. Says the Gemara, not so fast. It could be an addendum over here, something, an addition over here that will make a difference. No problem. After all, you have two people on the carbon. One leaves for whatever reason. He leaves because he goes to another carbon, or he dies. Bottom line is, the son is still registered on this carbon. It's a viable carbon Pesach. You don't have to bring it as a Shlomim. That's not the case where you're going to not bring it as a Pesach, where you're going to bring it as a Shlomim. If the son is not registered with him, then Yivienu l'shum shlamim, right? Then you bring the animal as a shlamim, shisha asa, right? On the 16th day. Fred Gemara liyudvav, the 16th. Yes, l'testvav loy. Says Gemara kasava nidarim v'nadav. Saying crave from yontif. Right now, the only thing that we can bring on yontif, guys, is a carbon that's zaman kavua. Usually a carbon siba that the zman is kavua. If it's a neder or a nedava, it's an oil or a shlamim, which a person has the capacity to go ahead and donate. In that case, we're not going to bring that on Tesvav. Tesvav is Yontif. We're going to bring it the first day of Chalamoid in the Eretz Yisrael, which is Tezayin.
Rabbi, just a quick one. Why does it say Yud-Vav? We're not Tesvav and Tezayin like we do.
I don't know. I don't know. It's I don't know. I was wondering the same thing. Says the Gemara. Now, this man, when did he die? Says the Gemara. The Mesa Av Amos. When exactly did the husband die? The Mesa Av Amos. When did he die? Ilema the Mes Koidim Chatzos. If you're going to say that he died before Chatzos. Now, before Chatzos, meaning they used to go ahead and set aside the Korban Pesach on your Dalet. And when it came Chatzos is the Zman of the Korban Pesach. That's Koiveya, it is a Pesach. Now, if he died before then, Koim Chatzos b'noi mamuna imoy. Now, Koim Chatzos b'noi mamuna imoy yivienu l'shum Pesach. 1 second. That you're telling me before Chatzos that he died, and the son brings it as a Pesach. Hachala aninas ilave meikara. Right? It's chal aninas on the son right away. At that period of time, it was chal aninas on the son. So how could he go ahead possibly and bring this lad as a Pesach? Let's see Rashi here, guys. Let's go down 3 lines where it gets wide. And that day aninas was chal in Bereisha. The suloi chal chiyuv with the Pesach. He's the only game in town. You can't bring a carbon Pesach kiddet nan. All of them you can't bring. Remember, I said if one person is a nine, but other people are on the carbon, then you could bring it. But if no one else on the carbon, they're not. He brings it. So in other words, that can't be the case. We said the only time an oina can bring is when other people are registered, and then he can eat it at night because aninas is the rabbanon at night. But during the day it's the raisa. Fred the Gemara, if the father died before Chatzos and the son was counted in, and they're the only game in town, both of them. And now comes Chatzos and it's Koiveya, and he's only there. There's no way in the world he can go ahead and bring this as a carbon Pesach, right? Because there's a noinen, and there's no one else, and no one else registered. Ella, back in the Gemara, it must be the Meis Acha Chatzos. It must be he died after Chatzos. Ein b'noi mamuna imoi. If his son is not registered with him, Yivi enu l'shum shleimim, then he can bring it as a shlamim. 1 second. He died after Chatzos. Hakavate Chatzos. Chatzos was Koveya. Chatzos was Koveya. It's a Pesach. Look at Rashi again. With lines get wide, about 7 lines down. Hakavate Chatzos. The Pesach. He was alive. The father was alive. It was Koveya as a Pesach. The Idchim Shlamim. And now longer, it's not a Moiser Pesach, guys. It's not a leftover Pesach. For Hadid Nan, HaPesach Oimi B'Chatzos Le'Kriva Yirah. We said a Pesach after Chatzos, it's Oimi B'Chatzos, you raw it. So how could you bring this as a shlamim? In other words, by the aninos, you shouldn't be able to bring it as a Pesach. Over here, you should be able to bring it at all. So Amar Rabba, La'olam Demes Koydim Chatzos. Now, what was the question? He's an oinei. Umay Yevienu L'Shem Pesach Sheni. Okay, that's one way out. He can't.
Why couldn't they?
Let me just finish my words, okay? Thanks. He dies before Chatzos. Aninas is chal. Therefore, it's a full-fledged Pesach. Since it was before Chatzos, it wasn't Nidcha, it wasn't out yet. And then he'll bring his Pesach Sheni. Yes, Yehuda.
Oh, good. They blamed Yehud instead of me. Yeah, it was Yehud all along that made the noise. Why can't you say he set aside the Pesach by Nates? He died. They made the Levaya before Chatzos. He's not an Einin anymore.
He's still an Einin. The day of the Kfur is an Einin.
Even after the Levaya?
The day of the Kfur is an Einin, I think.
Don't they have nowadays after the Levaya, they put on tefillin, he's only an Einin, you don't put on...
I don't know the halachas. So what do you want to say? He died before in the morning.
And they made the Levaya because you're worried that when the time came, you're looking for a possible case. You're saying because he's an Einin. It's possible that the father set aside together with him in the morning. He died in the morning. They made the Levaya.
Yeah, he's Tommy Mace. And he's Tommy Mace.
No. Let's say he avoids the Tommy Mace. I'll think about it. Okay, next teretz. Abaya Amar Litztadin Ketani. We're gonna learn this Litztadin. We're gonna learn this. We're gonna say it's on two different statements. Mace Acher Chatzos. If he dies after Chatzos, B'nai Memuna Imai, and the son was registered with him, Yivien L'Shem Pesach. That we weren't discussing before Chatzos. That we're discussing after Chatzos, then he brings it as a Pesach. Meis Koyim Chatzos. Now, if he dies before Chatzos, Ein B'nai Memuna Imai. If the son is not registered with him, Yivien L'Shem Shlamim. But in Achinami, if his son was registered with him, he would bring it what as a Pesach. I'm not sure about what I just told you. Let's see Rashi on this. Meis koydem chatzos ve'ein b'noi nimna imoy yivienu l'shem shlamim. The loy kavat the chatzos because it was before chatzos. V'im b'noi nimna imoy loy isterich l'ruye boy. You wouldn't even psak midi. The vaday makul pesach sheni vaday yusuf pesach sheni. Vashmina mino the heicher the chala chiyuv the pesach bereisha when the chiyuv comes before because the father was alive shoyf din alav. This might help you, Dov. Lishnachrina, hachalala aninas bereisha, besulay chalala chiyuv de Pesach. Right? If aninas, once he's an einin, he's potter from mitzvahs, and therefore he'd be potter from the Pesach. He'd be potter from being it at all. V'adet nan shoychten ala einin hani miliheicha de chal cheves Pesach ala bereisha v'hod de chalala aninas. Okay, this would answer Dov's question. According to this, if he set aside the Pesach, it doesn't mean anything because the Chiyuv didn't come till Chatzos. He died, the father died before Chatzos. He's an Oinen. Comes Chatzos, and we have a Chiyuv to bring the Pesach, but he's part of the mitzvah. So automatically, the korban that they set aside will be used to Pesach Sheni. That would answer your question, though.
Really, because I'm saying that when Chatzos came, he was. Again, that depends if an einin is part from the mitzvahs the whole day, even after the levaya.
Again, once there's a difference between tefillin, which is a mitzvah tamidius, and the korban pesach. There's no when he's an einin. There's no. So you want to say like you're burying him before, so he's not an einin, and then when it comes, it's going to be chal. So you know what you're saying? It doesn't work. I think as soon as he's an einin, he's part from the mitzvahs right away. It's not like he's part completely. So. In other words, the Pesach can't be his Pesach. The Pesach that comes can't be his Pesach because it's Pata. Okay, a third teretz. So we have two teretzim. One is that it's with actually two. Shum Pesach, he was in Einain, and now let's start in. Rav Shravi Amaloilam Demes La'achar Chatzos. He died after Chatzos. The father was a goisis. He was holding my misa by Chatzos. And he died after Chatzos. His son was with him, and we'll say that since he was since he was a goises and roiv goises in the misa, we'll consider as if he died already, and therefore you can bring it as a korban pesach. Rav Ashi Amar Lo'ilam Demeis La'achar Chatzos. He died after Chatzos. Reb Shimon he Damar Ein Bali Chaim Nidafin. Okay, we just saw that, right? That concept. He died after Chatzos. So he died after Chatzos. What was the kasha? How could you go ahead and bring the animal as a shlamim? Reb Shimon he dama ein bali chaim nidachin. Reb Shimon says in that Bali Chaim, you can't put, right, only if you get a mum. So therefore, since it's after Chatzos and he can't bring it because he's the only guy counted on it, so therefore it becomes a shlamim. And Bali Chaim can't be pushed out. That's what he's saying. Let's see Rashi over here. Which says about about 15 lines up. The kashla how can you bring it as a shlamim? A kavata chatzois to be a pesach. The itchi, it's out. If Shimon hidama, ain't Bali Chaim nidachin. So therefore, alam machmitz only because of a moma machir, so it's not out. And therefore, since it's not out, you can bring it as a shlamim and you don't have to graze it. Ravina Aman Gan Shehifishu Acha Chatzois, you separated after Chatzois, Umesa Bailam Acha Chatzois, the Kasava Chatzois Keva, and when you separated it, it was Kaveya. At that point in time, when you separated the animal, it was Kaveya, of course, Chatzois, and then the father died. So if the son is counted with him, you bring it as a Pesach, because the Zman was Kaveya, with the father's alive. Then if the father dies and he's not there, then it's kaveya that is a carbon, and you won't be able to bring it as a carbon because he's the only game in town. Therefore, you have to go ahead and bring it as a shlamim. It'll be a leftover shlamim. Says the Mishnah, Pesach shenis arab b'zvachim, a Pesach that got mixed up with zvachim. Rashi brings three cases, guys. You have a tleh, three sheep. One's an oila, one's an asham, and one is a Pesach. You can't tell the difference. They're all three. They look the same. And what's the halacha? Kulon yiru achi yistavu. Go ahead, graze all of them until they get a mum. V'yavi b'demei hayafa shebehem, and bring the worth of one of them. Miminzeh u'demei yafa behem miminzeh. V'yafsid ha'maisim mibeisai. So let's say the following. Let's say the one animal is worth $100, another animal is worth $50, and another animal is worth $25. You're going to have to bring three animals. You're going to get all of these are going to get a mum. You're then going to bring three animals, and you have to spend $100 in each one, right? Because Ken Zayin, each one could be the older one, and you're going to be mafsid the difference. The 50 is going to cost you $125, right? You're going to have to 75 for the 25, another 50 for the 51. So it's that's what you do. Pesach shenasav b'zvachim kulin yirad shistavu yimach v'yaviu b'demei hayafa shebehem miminzeh b'demei hayafa b'shem minzeh v'yafsid ha'moisa, and the extra money is mafsid beisai. This arav b'chayrus, let's say it gets mixed up with a b'char. Now a b'char and a Pesach are similar in the avoida, that you go ahead, you only have to the one spritzing on the mizbeach. They differ in the length of where you could eat it, right? Whether a b'char is 2 days and a night, and a Pesach's only in one night. Another difference is a b'char, if it has a mum, you can't be paid it at all. So what do? Rav Shimon Omer, im chaburas kahanim yachelu. If it's a chabur of kahanim, they could eat it. They wait till it gets a mum and you eat it. Let's see Rashi. Rav Shimon Omer, bottom line, im kol chabur kula kahanim, to all kahanim, hayochlu es kulam boy balayla, v'yakum Pesach l'shem Pesach, kol makam shehu, v'b'charis l'shem b'char, b'chol makam shehein. So you shech these animals. You'll say whichever is the Pesach, whichever is the Bechar, so I'm eating it as a Bechar. Okay? Says the Gemara. And I told you the difference between a Pesach and a Bechar is the length of you could eat it. According to the Pesach is eaten for a night, and that's eaten for 2 days and a night. So if you're going to bring all of them as a Pesach, you're diminishing the time you can eat the b'chayrim, and you're not allowed to do that. For ma'isi kachim lebeis hapsul, you're bringing kachim lebeis hapsul. So Rabbi Shimon l'tamei, this is Rabbi Shimon according to his reasoning. The Amar is of the opinion maybe in kachim lebeis hapsul. No, it's given that choice by missing out on a carbon pesach and bringing a carbon shlamim or a carbon to its base hapsul. We'll bring carbon to base hapsul. The 9 asham shenisarav b'shlamim. Now an asham and the Shlomim are similar in the fact that they both are Shtaim Shein Arba. You put the blood on the Mizbeach the same way. The difference is the length of time you could eat them and where the Shchita is. The Shchita of a Asham is only in the north. The shita of Shlomo is Nahal Azara. In addition, there's Allah of Chaz B'Shoik that goes to the Kayin. There's a din of Tnufa of the Chaz B'Shoik by Shlomo, not by an Asham. So says the Gemara, if you have an Asham Shenisara B'Shlomo, Reb Shimon Omer, Yishchatu B'Tzafin, shech them all in the north, V'yochlu Kichom Shebehem, and you'll eat it the length of time that you can eat an Asham. You're bringing the Shlomim to a base of Psul a day earlier. We don't care. This is Rav Shimon L'Tamei that you'll bring Kachin L'Beis HaPsul. So too by the Bechor, even though you're bringing Kachin L'Beis HaPsul a day earlier because it's only eaten by a night by Pesach, that seems to be okay, according to Rav Shimon. Amalei, Rav Shimon, Eimavin Kachin L'Beis HaPsul. For Rabbanan Heichi Abdinan, what would the Rabbanan who say you can't bring Kachin L'Beis HaPsul, what would they do with the problem of a Pesach being mixed with Bechorim? What would he do over there? Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, Namtim loy ashe yumamu. You wait till they all get mumim. The yavi behema shmeina. You bring a fat saftig animal. V'lema kol heicha d'ishil Pesach tochel aleha. The kedusha of the Pesach should go on this animal. The hay v'achel lahu b'toyes b'char b'amum. The hay and all. So you took the kedusha of the Pesach wherever it is, because you can be poida Pesach, guys, and therefore the kedusha should be on this animal. And all the rest of the animals are no problem. It's a b'char, it's a balmum. A b'char, it's a balmum, you could eat in your backyard. So I took any kedusha that was there is taken off with the pediyah of the b'char, of the Pesach, wherever it is. Again, you are obviously going to have to bring a card. You can't bring this as a carbon Pesach. We're just wondering, how could you eat it? So his eitzah is, wait till all they get a mum, be part of the kedusha of the Pesach, wherever it is on this animal. The other animals do not they require pediyah. You can't be part of them. But since they're a bechor that has a balmum, you eat them wherever they are, and that's it. Okay, the rest of today's daf is a mishnah. It's an involved mishnah. It gets a little funny at the end. Chabura she'avad pischa, a chabura that lost its carbon pesach. The omru le'echad, they went ahead and they told an individual, listen, we got a problem. We're 5-6 guys. We don't have a pesach. Here's what you're going to do. Seu bikish, go look for it. V'shachar aleinu. And when you find it, shecht it for us. Again, remember, guys, achila is not ma'akiv. We're speaking about being yoitza that you wouldn't have to go to Pesach Sheni. Achila is not ma'akiv. Again, and you be yoitza, you wouldn't have to go to Pesach Sheni. V'holachu matzah, he goes and he finds it, v'shachat, and he shechted it. Now, these were nervous Nellies, and they didn't believe that this guy's going to find it. V'heim lachu v'shachtu, they went and bought, and they shechted their own. Question. What's the halacha? Im shaloi nishchat rishayin. They ask him, what time did you shecht? He says, I shechted it at 12:30. I found it at 12:30. I shechted at 12:30. And when did you shecht yours at 4:30? 4 hours later, hu oichel mishaloi? He eats from that 12:30 carbon. They right? And they eat what? Mishaloi with that 12:30 carbon, because they made him a shliach, guys. So their 4:30 carbon goes to the Beis HaSreifa. You don't need it, because they were all yoytze the chiyav with the 12:30 carbon. Vim shalahem nishchat rishayin, and let's say the 4:30 was shechted first, and his carbon first came in at 5:30. Heim ochlim mishalahem, who ochlim mishaloi. He's going to eat. They are going to eat theirs because he was never part of theirs, right? Remember, they sent him as a messenger for the first one. He was not part of the second one, and therefore, who ochlim mishaloi. So that seems to be straightforward. Now we get a little interesting. If you don't know which one was geschachten first, or they were both shechted simultaneously, who oichel mishaloi, he eats from his. Veheim eina oichlem imai, he eats from his. Veheim eina oichlem imai, and they don't eat from him, right? Because why? Maybe their Pesach was the right Pesach. They can't eat his because maybe theirs was bought before and they don't have a chiyuv anymore because they were yoitz with their own. So therefore, he can eat his because he wasn't part of theirs. They can't eat theirs. Why? They can't eat theirs because maybe theirs was bought first, and maybe they can't eat him. Maybe theirs was bought first, and they can't be yoitz with him. Ushalahem yoitz lebeis hasreifa. Theirs goes to beis hasreifa. Upatur milas is Pesach, and they're part of doing a Pesach. In other words,
I don't understand something. If they don't have to eat, if they don't have a chiyuv to eat, even if he brought his and they brought
I didn't
his.
say they didn't have a chiyuv to eat. I said the eating is not ma'akiv. Doesn't stop it.
Right. So it's not ma'akiv. Even if the first one found the Korban Pesach and they all registered with that and they brought theirs anyways, they would still be retroactive to his. His is always valid.
If they brought theirs, before his, in other words, they were showing they were Moshech Yedeyim from that carbon. Your retroactive
They could.
I'm disagreeing with you respectfully on your retroactive. If you bring a second carbon, you're showing quickly, I'm removing myself from the first carbon. You're allowed to be Moshech Yada before Shchita. We had that as a Mefurish Mishnah. So
okay, right. Okay.
So in other words, by bringing that carbon hesh, you're making a statement that I don't want part of that first one.
Okay.
Okay, so now, Upatur Milas Pesach Sheni, the Patur doing Pesach Sheni, because Memanav Shach, guys, Memanav Shach the Yaitza. To be the Yaitza with the first one, with whichever one came. If the first one came, the Yaitza with his, and if theirs were first, the Yaitza with theirs. They just can't eat it, but the Yaitza, Memanav Shach Yaitza. Amalahem, Im Achrati, he says to them, listen, if I am delayed, Tzu'u v'shachtu alai, then you shech for me. So until now, it's been an easy case. Simply why? The first guy had nothing to do with what they did the second, right? Now, they didn't make him a shliach, but he's telling them, he's saying he's going, and he says, Tzu'u v'shachtu alai, haluch u'matzah, he goes and he finds v'shachat. V'heim lachu v'shachtu, and they go and shech. Im shalahem nishchat v'shayin, heim oichlim mishalahem, v'oichlim mahem, he eats with them. V'im shaloi nishchat v'shayin, oichlim mishaloi, v'heim oichlim mishalahem. Again, they're not going to eat with the first one because they didn't make him a shliach. They're going to eat with the second one. This is reverse shlichus. This guy says, I'm going out to look for the carbon. They don't make him a shliach for them. They bring another one. And he says, listen, if I don't find mine, I want a piece of your action. So this is a Pasha case. If the second one if the first one was bought first, and then it doesn't make a difference. The first guy goes to the first one, and the second group, they go to theirs. If, however, the first one was bought first, then the second one was bought first. The first guy, he only has a chelik in the second one. He can't use the first one. You don't know which one came first. They can eat from his. Why? Because they were not part of the first guy. Remember, they never made him a shliach. They never made the first guy a shliach. So whenever it's irrelevant when he bought his carbon. The only game in town is theirs, and the only shiloh is the first guy. For who ain't oichli mahem, he can't eat because maybe why? If he was yaitza in his, he can't be counted on theirs. V'shalo yaitza lebeis hasreifa, and his own goes to the beis hasreifa. That seems to be pretty straightforward. Upatim lasas pesach sheni mimanav shach, guys. Mimanav shach. If his was first, he's yaitza. If theirs was first, he's yaitza. So mamela, he doesn't have to go to pesach sheni. Very good, clear. It's good. Amar lahem. He says to them, V'omru, and they say to him, in other words, now they made him a shliach and he made them a shliach. Until now, the variables were he was a shliach and they weren't. In the second variable, they were a shliach and he wasn't. The third variable, they're both shluchim. They send the guy and they say, listen, you find the carbon, bring it. He says, listen, if you're going to go make another carbon, I want part of your action. So the shiler is, are they all removed from this one or all removed from that one? Says the Gemara. Then whichever one was bought first, they'll all eat from that one, right? Because they were all part of the same carbon, al yedei shlichus. So whichever one was bought first is their carbon Pesach, and then they'll eat from there. If you don't know which one was bought first, right? Why? The second guys can't eat from the first guys because why? Maybe they were yaitz already with theirs. The first guy can't eat from the second guys. Maybe he's yaitz with his, and so they both have to get burnt, but they both all be part of Pesach Sheni, right? Now, lo yom alahem v'lo yom uloi, no shlichus whatsoever. Ein acharoyin zelizeh. This is a clean sweep, no problem. He goes with his, they go with theirs. They're not connected whatsoever, and and everyone lives happily ever after. Now, shtei chaburos shenis arvu pischayim. You have two chaburos. You have two separate chaburos that this arvu pischayim that their korbanos they got mixed together. So it's not speaking one carbon, one chabura. Now you have two chaburas. You have two chaburas that the pesachim got mixed together. So what do? Elu moishkim lehem echad. You take each group, one guy from one group. One group takes one carbon. And one takes the other carbon. Now they can either be their carbon or the other one's carbon. Those are two possibilities, right? A and B, and group one has their group as A, and group two as B, or no, group one has B and group two as A. One guy from group A goes to group B, and one guy from group B goes to group A. So you mix them up now. You have one guy who now the kachem oimin, and the guys of the original group, they say to the new guy, Im shalanu huwa pesach hazeh. If this Pesach, which right now is by us, that's the one we want, we designated, that's the one we're registered in, then yodecha meshuchas mishalcha, then we're taking you away, guy, we're taking you away from group B and joining group A, but nimnesa al shalanu, and now you're registered without carbon. V'im shalcha huwa pesach hazeh, and if this Pesach is yours, then yodenu meshuchas mishalanu, then we're leaving ours, v'nimnu al shalcha, and we'll be registered on yours. The easiest way, guys, would have been group A and group B, and you had Pesachim 1 and 2. The easiest would have been said, listen, the group says to each other, if it's ours, it's ours, and if it's not, we move our hands and we're on the other one, and vice versa. The problem is, you always need one person from the original group to be there. You can't be someone who wasn't registered. It can't be you have 5 guys in a group. You can't go 0 to 5 and 5 to 0. You can't do it. So therefore, we got to make sure we have one guy who's registered. So you always have a guy, that one guy, it's 5 guys in a group. So 4 guys are from A and 1 guy is from B. So the guarantees in this carbon, there'll be one registered person. And therefore, they make that switch. That's what you're guaranteeing over here. Instead of going ahead with this condition without anyone, the reason why we need one guy from the group with the statement is because if it's not a carbon, you're part of the group. And you always need someone who's part of the group, and that's the Eitzah. If 5 groups of 5 people or 10 groups, you take one from each group, they make the same statement that what if this is ours, then you're joining us, and it's yours, we're joining you. You got 2 people, it's not a group. You got 2 people, and the carbonos get mixed together. So here's the problem. If we do the switch without anybody else, the carbon's going to be 0, right? It's guys, remember, you can't have a 0. You have to have one person registered. So if you only have one game in town and it gets mixed together, you can't say, make it tonight, well, if this is my carbon, then you remove your hand and go, then I remove my hand and you vice versa. You can't do it because you won't have anyone registered. So what do? You have to add someone to the group. So let's say you have Shimon, and Reuven and Shimon have karbanis. Reuven's going to take in Levi, and Shimon's going to take in Yehuda. Then, when Reuven takes in Levi and Shimon takes in Yehuda, Reuven's going to go to Yehuda, and he's going to give him that same speech. He's going to tell Yehuda, if this animal is mine, then you're removed from yours, and you count it over here. And if this animal is yours, we'll remove them and go over there. Give the same Eitzah. Let's see it inside. You have to get one person in the street. So you have Reuven and Shimon, they're getting Levi in the street. Now you have Yehuda joining Shimon. One guy takes one carbon by him. Now Reuven's going to take Yehuda, and Shimon's going to take Levi. And Amru, Im Shali, who Pesach said, if this is my carbon, your hands is Moshe from yours, Benimnas al Shali, and you count in a mine. Dim Shalchohu Pesach, and this is yours. Yadai Meshuchas Mishali, then Nesi Al Shelcha, and I'm counting in on yours. Good to
Good.
go.